Hi there, Instagram. I'm having quite a bit of fun. This is new to me. Tinkering around, welcoming your questions, sharing of myself with you. One of the questions that someone just asked me is, what should a person do? What could I do? A person is willing to change and ready to work on themselves. Tried tons of therapists and it's not working. I love that question. It's a question that's very, very close to my heart. As a matter of fact, I myself was in therapy for 5 years, a number of different therapists. And not only that, but at a certain point, hey David, it's nice to see you here. At a certain point, I even went to school, got a degree in social work, thinking that I would want to practice therapy, psychotherapy with people. And in reality, I don't practice psychotherapy with people. And I'd like to share with you my take on the question. This is not the truth, but it's my experience. It's the only thing that I'm an authority on. If I'm an authority on anything, it would only be my experience. I think if a person is really willing to grow and ready to change, and therapists are not working, to me, what that represents is that the entire context that they're inside of is not true for them. Let me explain what I mean by that. I think that there is a subtext, a subtle implication, and sometimes not so subtle, when we go to therapy, that we're broken, that we're messed up, that we're traumatized, that we're wounded, that we're in need of fixing. As a matter of fact, the term therapy itself means medicine or intervention. And treatment. And that word itself, intervention, medicine, treatment, this terminology, therapy, implies sickness, damage, breakage, traumatization, woundedness, and a need for fixing, and a need for healing, and a need for restoring. Now, I myself went to therapy for 5 years. I get it. Oftentimes we're in that place. That's how we view ourselves. So we put ourselves onto a path of therapy in the hopes of putting back together our broken pieces. That being said, if someone is looking to grow in their life and therapist after therapist is not working, I personally would invite you to really to consider the possibility that you're actually not broken, and that while you have an aspiration to grow and you're aware that there's more of you that has yet to be actualized, more potential to be expressed, more possibility to be manifested, and you want something more for yourself, that's very different. A desire is very different than need. Oftentimes when we go into therapy, the pretense, the context, the subtext, the implication is, I need fixing because I'm damaged. And it's often not true for us. It's really sometimes just not true for us, but it's the only paradigm that we kind of know of. It's become socially acceptable in the community to go to therapy. The idea that, I'm going to therapy because I was wounded as a child, because I have issues, it's kind of become, luckily and thankfully, it's become more socially acceptable. And it's kind of like the lowest hanging fruit that we often think of and that we often know about to go like expand ourselves or to become or to grow. And the reality is that, again, as I said, the entire context, the entire framework, the entire structure of therapy very often is rooted on the premise that I'm broken, damaged, wounded, traumatized, etc. The therapy itself promises to be an intervention or a treatment or a healing process. And more than anything else, underlying that whole dynamic is I need it. I need healing. I need fixing. I need. There's a pretense that I need that. And again, if therapy after therapy after therapy is not working, while some, especially those who are rooted in the psychotherapeutic community, would say, then you're in denial. Oh, then you need to go to this therapist. Oh, then you need to go to that intervention, and they would continue. There's a tendency within the psychotherapeutic community to continue to pathologize, in other words, to make wrong and to make more sick that person, right? And say, if it's not working, that means you're that much more messed up. Go to a 5-day intensive trauma recovery retreat, go to a 30-day this, etc., etc., etc. There's a proclivity within the psychotherapeutic community to continue to pathologize and diagnose and render one more and more sick. I actually think in the opposite direction. When the therapies are not working, it's time to consider that my whole idea that I need therapy, my whole idea that I'm broken, my whole idea that I'm messed up, my whole idea that I'm traumatized and wounded and need fixing is actually not true. And it might be a time to consider granting oneself, I'm complete, I'm perfect, whole, and complete, I'm okay. I don't need fixing. I don't need to keep pathologizing myself, to keep diagnosing myself, to keep using psychoanalytic jargon and say, oh, that's an anxiety, oh, that's a phobia, oh, that's a depression, oh, that's a procrastination, oh, that's a this diagnosis and a that diagnosis, because anyone who opens up a DSM will find themselves, their family, and every single living being in the world somehow, represented in the DSM. So it could be a time for a person to consider that the whole model that they're in, the notion that they're broken, the notion that they need fixing or help is itself undercutting them, and it's just not true. And that's an opportunity to switch to a whole different idea and a whole different model, which is, well, what would I love? I'm fine. I'm perfect, whole, and complete, but what would I love? Is there more to me that wants to come out? And in my experience, that's the work of deep coaching. That's the deep coaching experience that I've had with my own coaches, and that's the kind of work I do with other people. It's like, what would you love to create? Who would you love to be? What would you love to create in the world? What are the beliefs that you're holding onto that make that impossible, that constrict your view? Our ideas and beliefs are what form our relationship with reality. And our relationship with reality is what either makes available or unavailable certain courses of action. And actions always create results. So our beliefs and the way we're looking at ourselves and the way we're looking at our world is always so decisive in terms of what results we are creating in our experience of ourselves. So, but this kind of work lives in a whole different paradigm. It's not like I'm broken, I'm messed up, I need help. No, it's I'm perfect, whole, and complete, and there's something I'd love. I'd love to unfold and to fully express who I am. I'd love to create certain results in the world. I'd love to expand and become more spacious and be more and more and more of the divine being that I am. And it's a much more creative inquiry. It's a much more fun inquiry. It's a much more adventurous inquiry. And it's oftentimes much more true to us. So if someone is ready to work on themselves and ready to go deep and really grow and change, and therapy after therapy is not working, I'd invite them to consider that the entire paradigm and context of I need fixing, I need healing, I need therapy is actually not true for them and doesn't actually allow for the fullness of who they are to be expressed. And so it won't work. It just won't work, because I think we all have a kind of a subconscious mechanism that makes sure that when we're up to something that's really not true for us, that it doesn't work. It's a way of alerting us that this is not true for me, right? It's not an indication of deeper brokenness. It's actually our own spirit and our own intuition letting us know, like, no, this is not true for me. Right? There's something here that's a lie and that's not true for me. So that would be my answer. And again, it's a very generalized answer, and it's based only on my experience, but it's an invitation. It's an invitation to expand the entire context of how a person is thinking and going about their own growth. So I hope that serves you, and I share that with you from a place of humility and love, and invite you into that. This is an invitation into a new world, a new paradigm. I'm loving you and blessing you and everyone who's watching this.